Hey, it's Andrew Huang. In the last few years, I've completely 180'd on this approach to making music that I will admit I was late to the game on and a little bit closed-minded about. Basically, it's the idea of doing pure sound design sessions, not working on sounds for a purpose or for a specific project, not even really trying to make music, but just sitting down and making some cool sounds. And maybe later in the future, some of them might become useful in a piece of music, but a lot of them I'll just never hear again. And that's totally okay. Maybe you do this already, but if you don't, does that sound a little bit pointless or like a waste of time or not very productive? That's what I used to think. My approach to sound design used to always be in a 100% musical and purposeful context. I would make the sound I needed for the song that I was working on. And that's not a bad thing. I definitely still do that. But doing separate, pure sound design sessions will add a whole other dimension to your musical creativity. And so today I wanted to talk about why that is, and also we'll be sprinkling in some sound design tips and tricks that I've found really helpful. So let's go. If you do sound design on its own, you can really get into it and have fun with it. And for some people, that's different than if you're in the middle of working on a track and you end up needing to create this super specific sound where it can feel a little bit more like work. You have to achieve this thing, and if you don't achieve it, you feel bad. And music wants to be alive. It's like capturing magic, and a lot of those magical moments, those happy accidents, happen through playing rather than working. I think it comes through in a piece when there was some spontaneity and playfulness and surprise in the process. So for example, modular sound design session happening here. I'm sending the audio to Ableton, but it's just a project with one track in it, and I'm letting the recording run while I make a bunch of sounds. So anything that I do, any discovery that I make, any happy accidents are instantly documented. I don't have to think about it at all. Later on, there is the whole process of sifting through all your recordings and finding the parts that you liked. If you did want to use them, you can make that easier for yourself though. This will work with any DAW that lets you set up a keyboard shortcut for creating markers. So in Ableton, I'm gonna hit Command K, and that lets you choose things to assign keyboard shortcuts to. Now I'm gonna click this Set button, which is what you use in Ableton to create markers, and I'm just gonna assign it to the /? Key. Command K to leave that keyboard shortcut mode, and now as the timeline plays, if I hit that key, it'll make markers. So then as you're recording yourself making sounds, whenever you come up with something that you want to hold on to, just reach over, hit that key, and keep going. As a little bonus tip, if you use a wireless keyboard, that makes it even easier for you to position this where it's gonna be optimal for you to hit that key and set markers while you're playing. Maybe you're making sounds on your guitar and you could put it on the floor and tap it with your toe. So the sounds I'm making here are with a few IntelliGel modules. IntelliGel is one of the sponsors of our current giveaway. You could enter to win a Tetrapad with the Tet Expander or a Quadrax. Tetrapad is a modular touch controller. You can use these 4 touch pads as sliders, as drum pads. There's a keyboard mode, there's an LFO mode. And with the Tet Expander, instead of having just one mode at a time, you can have each touchpad be a different mode if you want. You can configure them however you like. And it also adds a sequencing mode as well as a gesture recording and looping mode. Quadrax is a super versatile CV generator. It's got 4 channels that each give you a selection between different kinds of envelopes, a really fun burst generator, and all kinds of LFOs, some really complex LFO shapes. More info on the giveaway in the video description, and maybe I'll put like a card up there that you can tap on. These are highly multifunction modules. They pack a lot into a small space, so I won't do a full breakdown of them, but here I'm using them to modulate a bunch of the sound parameters of Shapeshifter, and then I'm compressing everything with Jelly Squasher. This is another thing I used to be averse to, and now I just go for it, baking in compression, or any effects really. I used to think I wanted to capture the rawest, purest form of a sound, but everything that you use in a track ends up getting processed a little bit anyway, so I've just started being okay with doing it on the way in. I put my trust in my ears, and you know, if anything doesn't sound right while I'm giving my full attention to sound design, I'll just tweak the settings, maybe I'll take the effects off if it feels like the right thing to do. So anyway, I'm getting all these cool sounds. Some of them might inspire music that I make in the future. I'm recording everything in Ableton. I'm dropping markers on the stuff that I like the most. And most importantly, I'm having fun. And that's the end of Chapter 1. Music is made of sounds. Did you know that? I know you watch this channel for that hard-hitting production knowledge. All other things being equal, your composition, your lyrics, your performance, if the sounds themselves are better, however you measure better, the music's gonna be better. So if you take some time to focus on just making the best sounds that you can, not the best song that you can, not the best melody or best bass line, maybe just the best bass sound that you can make, then any music that you eventually make using that bass sound will be a little bit better than the same music with another bass sound that you didn't give as much attention to. And you can totally craft those great sounds as you need them, but sometimes things get in the way. Like if you're writing a bunch of parts and you're putting them together and you're fleshing out your track, you don't want to interrupt that flow spending 45 minutes tweaking a bass patch. And you can always come back to those sounds later and finesse them, but with timbre and texture becoming more and more important in modern music, the way that you build upon your existing ideas will be largely informed by their actual sound. If you're using a smooth bass pad, then what you pair with that is probably going to be a little different than if it were a plucky sound or a distorted sound. So having a wide variety of preset options that you're familiar with because you spent hours designing them is super handy. That familiarity is really key because instead of realizing that you need a certain type of sound and then either having to make it from scratch right there or scroll through a bunch of other people's presets at random hoping to find a good jumping off point, if you've spent a bunch of time designing sounds, then your brain is gonna light up in those moments when they could be useful. That's also why, in addition to doing those fun audio sound design sessions like I was showing earlier, it's a great idea to also sometimes just do sessions where you design synth patches. Designing sounds in audio is great because you are creating these very specific sounds that you can save exactly as they are and use them later, but they're not ideal in all situations. For instance, playing a melody with a sample, as you play higher and higher notes, the audio needs to get sped up so it gets shorter and shorter, and that's not always what you want. And during your sound design sessions, you probably don't want to record a sample of every possible note. So having a bunch of synth presets that you're familiar with because you made them and that hopefully you really like because you made them lets you have these playable instruments at your disposal for any future tracks that you work on. Well, it's a whole new day. Turns out there was a lot I wanted to get into on this topic. Chapter 4 is pretty short and sweet, but practice. Sound design, like so many aspects of music, is something you get better at. The deeper you dive into it, the more you spend time with it. And I find I just don't go as deep when I'm needing to design a sound for the song that I'm currently working on, as if I just commit to spending like an afternoon just stretching out on sound design. I learn my tools better, I understand audio concepts more deeply, I finesse my sounds more with the additional time, and then in those moments where I do need to design something from scratch, I can do it much more quickly because of the experience that I have, minimizing the interruption to my workflow. I did also want to mention samples in all this, particularly found sound that I've used a lot of. Sometimes you just hear a really cool sound out in the world that can be really inspiring, and if you've managed to capture it, there are so many fun ways that you can play with that recording and make music out of it. And that was part of what changed my mind about all this too. Like if I made a really cool track out of some bird calls, well, I didn't have anything to do with those bird calls. I didn't craft those sounds. I didn't even set out with the intention of finding those sounds. I probably just stumbled upon them while I was wasting time on Twitter, not even making music. So if I'm willing to accept sampling and completely repurposing random audio from out in the world, why wouldn't I be okay with making my own random sounds? Now, my final tip for you kind of circles back to the first one that we talked about recording everything. And this is for if your DAW allows resampling. You can set up a loop. Now, if you make a new track and route the audio from your first track into the new track, you can record while looping it and making any live manipulations that you want. And And now if I drag out this audio clip, we have everything that I just did. Even if you are just working with parameters that you can draw automation in for, you might want it as audio. For instance, let's look at this sound. I'm gonna run that through this delay and record some of the shenanigans. So if that was the sound that I wanted to create, sure, I could have that as just an automation move. But because I have it in audio now, I can do further manipulations on it. So I can chop this up. Like maybe if I really like this particular piece, you know, I could just use that however I want. Reverse it. This crazy thing at the end, like we could make a kick drum or a tom out of that. You know, getting things in audio gives you a lot more flexibility in some cases. By the way, this is also a giveaway item. This is an 1/8" patch cable hanger from Eurodesk Z. We'll be including this with the modules for whoever wins the modules from IntelliGel. There's also this larger model, which didn't sound as good, but also a really great cable hanger. Eurodesk Z made these specially in white for me. So you can always get their standard ones in black. I'm not sure if they're gonna make these more widely available, but currently the white ones are only available in the giveaway. There's so much available in the giveaway. There's a Focusrite Studio Starter Pack with a mic, headphones, and audio interface. I've got 5 Auto-Tune Pro licenses to give away. There's a Chase Bliss warped vinyl hi-fi pedal, and so much more. Click on this card if you wanna go enter the giveaway. My final point in this video is more of a philosophical thing, which is that a lot of misgivings about taking this kind of approach to music are probably more of a weird psychological thing than anything else. I don't know if you're anything like me, but I was classically trained in music, and for all the benefits of that, it kind of put composition on a pedestal for me. It was a serious, deliberate thing. You wanted to have a vision. You wanted to create something with intent. And so you'd be sitting there with your instrument, working out your melodies and harmonies and dynamics and whatever. But what is an instrument? This beautiful thing is the result of centuries of design, of many brilliant minds putting thought and care and labor into a physical object, trying to make it sound as good as possible. This is a preset. Expecting a little bit of pushback in the comments for that one. By the way, shout out to Fender. This American Ultra Jazzmaster is also in our giveaway. So now with modern technology allowing us to create new sounds so quickly, I feel like in so many genres, it's starting to become really important to have these really finely crafted and even highly original, unique sounds. Traditional instruments are already sound designed, and so to get that level of expressiveness out of a synth patch, it takes a lot of time. So I hope this video was helpful for you and maybe encouraged you to try some new things in your sound design. I would love to hear any of your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to enter that giveaway, and I'll see you in the next one. As a little bonus tip, if you use a wireless keyboard, it makes it... Oh, jeez. Pressed play on that.